Hello and welcome back to Uncovering Inventory Systems. You thought I was done, didn't you? Speaking of you thinking why I was done, I did too, but then I had a realization we had some things I could still do. Now, you might be wondering why I gave up. I'm going to show you. Whenever I enter the world and I hit B, this is what it currently looks like. If I hit B again, it adds more and adds more and adds more and adds more, and it doesn't look good, right? Well, when I teach something, and it's something you all value, it's because I understand what's going on. It's because I can tell you when, why, and where something is acting and behaving the way that it is. I've decided when it comes to UI and visual stuff, I ain't figured it out yet. So why would I sit here and put on some kind of facade like I understand what I'm teaching you? That's not only unfair to you, it's unfair to me. It's just a no good situation. However, I did at least teach you how to access the information from the inventory, and now you can use that information to fill out the data on the UI whenever you find someone that can teach it to you better than I can. However, there is things we can still cover, which is why we're back. I'm going to go ahead and open up my little content drawer here, and I'm going to go to my game instance here. And if you remember, we have an inventory request and we have an inventory add. So what we're going to do is make sure we can remove things, make sure we have like an inventory check if we need to see what's in the inventory. I will say if you're using the class system like we have set up in Uncovering Inventory Systems, you will have to have the logic of individual stacks be done in the actual user interface. It's as simple as knowing what your stack size is for the item by adding that to the item class, and then make sure you put 20 of it on the UI, go to the next element, remove 20 from the total so you know how much you're dealing with, and then keep making stacks until it's filling up the inventory. So if you remember, we set it up so it checks to see if the item we're adding is present. If it's not, then we can just go ahead and shove a new entry in. If it is present, then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we can indeed find it, retrieve it, add the quantity that we're adding, and then re-update it in the actual map context. So let's go ahead and add the additional functionality. We're going to go over here to the functions. We're going to go ahead and create a new function. And we're going to do inventory remove instead. So inventory remove is going to require not only the item, so we're going to get the item class, but it's also going to require the quantity, because we need to know how many we're removing and if we have enough. So let's take this, and we want this to be the BP parent item. So we'll go ahead and click that. And remember, we are doing a class reference. And then the quantity, of course, will be an integer. All right, we're going to pull out a new reference to our player inventory. We're going to do contains to make sure that it even exists. Plug in the item class. We are going to press B, click on the event graph to get our branch, plug in the execution pin and the condition. I'm going to right click the branch under node comment. I'm going to say, does item exist in the inventory? If it doesn't and we're trying to remove it, then clearly we have come across an error. So out of false, we're going to do print. We're going to right click on the graph and type in format text. And then in format text, we're going to say in, then we're going to do a curly bracket, which is shift and then the left bracket to get the curly one. So in blueprint, close the curly bracket, could not find item trying to be removed, like that. And then for blueprint, we're just going to pull out and type in self. And now whenever it comes through in the log, it will say in, and then it'll use the self display name, could not find item trying to be removed. Plug that into the string, which we will get a converter, which is fine. Move this around a bit to make it look a little bit better. In fact, I'm just going to grab it all, press Q, grab it, comment, error handling, and then I'm going to make it like yellow or orangish, press OK. Now, you're probably wondering how the logic is going to work. Like if it's like I need to remove 15, but there's currently a quantity of 13 within the inventory. we're going to create an additional function that you should be running beforehand, before running like a remove or an add. So don't worry, after we do the remove, we are going to do the inventory check to make sure that we can even run the remove. Okay, but if it does exist, what we're going to do is get another reference to the inventory just to keep things clean. And we're going to pull out, now we're going to do find. In fact, I don't even need to pull it up over there. We can keep it kind of close. And then the selected class, I'm going to pull out and just do item class, which if you remember, item class is because this function requires the input of item class. So therefore we can call it like this. We're going to run a Boolean again. Again, this is just to now see that we did indeed find it. And just because I like it to be symmetrical, I'm going to move it a little bit here. Close enough. Now I'm going to right click on my branch, go to the note. Can we locate the quantity? If no, again, we're going to need error handling. So let's go ahead and grab this and paste it, plug our false into the print string. And we're going to change this a little bit. So in blueprint, could not find item trying to be removed. Let's make this so that way it makes more sense for this context. So in blueprint, unable to find quantity in, and then I'll put like 2 colons. I don't know why, that's just what I do whenever I'm like referencing a function. It's actually just my own thing, but if you like it, you can use it. Inventory underscore remove. So now whenever you read it, it'll say unable in blueprint, unable to find quantity in inventory remove. So therefore you'll be able to find that a little bit easier. Let's save it. All right, so it does exist. We were able to get the quantity. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use that quantity to see that we can indeed remove that amount. Again, we are going to do this check multiple times. We're actually going to check before we run the remove, but we're also going to check it during in case something slips through. So now from the find, what I'm going to do is actually going to pull out, and this needs to be greater or equal. So we're going to do greater equal. And then out of the bottom, we can just type in the word quantity. Again, this is because quantity was an input, so therefore we can call it within the function. And we'll click B and click, plug our Boolean in, connect the execution pin. I'm going to go ahead and make this look a little nicer. Okay, added some reroute nodes, straighten things up. I'm going to right click on the branch, type in, do we have enough to remove? If we don't, again, we're going to run an error handle. So we're going to go ahead and copy paste and plug that in here. Not all your functions are going to have this much error handling, by the way. It just so happens that in this case, there's like a lot of things we need to make sure are in place so we don't cause our code to go into the negatives or do anything weird. Unless you want it to be able to go in the negatives, like if you're running money and they take a loan out or something, feel free. But what we're doing here is just making sure that they have enough. I'm going to keep this at the end, by the way, these double colons. So instead, we're going to say in blueprint, unable to remove required quantity, just so we keep the vocabulary the same. And then I'll put the double colon and function name on there, compile and save. In fact, we also want to make sure we're running a success node. So what I'm going to do is right click. I'm going to type in return. And that'll gives us a return node. And what I'm going to do is add a parameter, call it success, and make it a Boolean. So that way, every time at the end of the error handling, it will return that it was not successful. This will be useful for like vendors trying to use a spell or something that requires a reagent, things like that. What this is going to do is be like, hey, it didn't work. And it's still not going to crash your game. You're going to get the error code. If it's a development build, if it's a regular build, you won't see the error code. But at the very least, in case it does go through this, like let's say it does fail, you missed a bug, it will still return that it wasn't successful. So that way the spell doesn't cast or whatever the context may be. And finally, if our player inventory has a greater or equal to quantity, then that means we can go ahead and do the calculation. So we're going to grab our inventory one last time. We're going to do a find. We're going to just type in item class for the class. We're not going to run the Boolean. We've already done this check. So we're going to take the quantity that we have. We're going to do subtract. And we are going to subtract the quantity. And again, get the player inventory. By the way, you don't have to make this many references either. I do it so I can keep my code clean. Like you can see how each step is clearly laid out. If you just want to pull up one reference, you can, but I highly recommend at least trying to make the code look clean. But now I'm going to do an add here. So for those that don't know, when it comes to maps, I may have already said this, but I'm going to repeat it. If it already exists and you do an add, it will replace the existing reference. So in this case, the reference is item class. If whatever is already in there, it's just going to replace it. So therefore, we can just take player inventory. We can just make the selected class the item class that we have referenced, and this is the new quantity. Go ahead and add some pins to make this look a little better. In case you didn't know, adding pins is as simple as double clicking on a line. And then after that, we can right click and type in, well, maybe right click and type in return, make sure this time it was successful. And we can hit compile and save. And now you have a remove that has error handling and makes sure that it is going to remove without going negative. Okay, so that is that updated. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit add and we're going to do an inventory check. So this is going to take in a item. Inventory check. Sorry, I can't do two things at once. I have ADHD. Control-Shift-S, compile, save. What we're going to do is we're going to run a pure function. If you don't know what those are, get excited because they're cool. We're going to create a pure function that checks if it's in the inventory with the quantity that we need, and then return true or false. This will become extremely useful like before we run the remove. There's no reason to do those checks and try to remove and get a bunch of errors in the error handling whenever we can just run the inventory check. If it returns true, fantastic. Then send it through. Per the usual, I'm going to be using item class. So I'm going to type in item class. And we're going to go down here. We're going to do an item class. Or I'm so stupid. Then we're going to go over here and make it a BP item parent, or parent item rather, as a class reference. And we're going to need a quantity, which is of course going to be an integer. And then we're going to go ahead and add the output. And we're just going to return success. You don't have to name it success. I'm naming it success because if it's successful, it's there. If it's not, wasn't there. It's just a naming convention I'm going to use. Compile and save. And then the next thing you're going to do, because it's super cool, is make sure you have inventory, the opener node selected. And on the right hand side, there's this thing called pure, and I'm going to go ahead and check it. Now, what the hell is a pure function? If you've never messed with one of these, they're really cool. So let's go to the event graph and pretend we're going to call this. You know how a normal function like inventory add looks like this. It's a blue node, requires an execution pin and an exit. However, when it's pure inventory check, it's one of those nice, awesome green nodes that don't require anything. All you're going to do is put the class and quantity in, and it's going to return information. It's awesome. So anyway, back in inventory check, we're going to go ahead and make some space and disconnect these for now. We're going to get a reference to the player inventory, and now we are going to do a contain. Actually, you know what? We're going to do this in one fell swoop on this one. We're just going to do the find with the item class, and we're going to do the branch. And the reason we're going to do this in one fell swoop is because if it can't find the quantity, then we can just assume from there. You can technically do that in the remove as well. I wouldn't recommend it. I like being thorough, but in this case, I'm not too worried about it because we have the additional checks as well. So we're going to do a find. If it doesn't find it, we're going to return a fail, which, by the way, in this one, we're not going to add error handling because the node exists as pure. It's not changing data. It's not going to cause any bugs. It's simply being like, hey, here's a quick step to check. Is it in there? Move on. So no, it's not in there. There's no success. If it is in there, then we're just going to do a branch. So I'm going to pull true up to the next branch. And it's simply going to check the quantity. This is a very small function, so I'm going to pull it over. And I'm just going to do a greater equal. Move it around a little bit to make it look nice. The greater equal is, of course, the quantity, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that out. Plug this into our branch. We add a true. We're going to do a return node like this, and we want it to be true. And then we need one more return node here, and it'll be false. So let's go ahead and look at the logic really quick. We're going to find an item. If it can't find it, clearly we don't have it. If it does find it, we're going to make sure our quantity is greater than or equal to the quantity we're requesting. If it's not, then also we don't have it. If true, then we're going to return success. We're going to compile and save. And now you've got a neat little function here that can check your inventory if something exists at a certain value or more. In fact, we're going to go ahead and right click on the first branch. Does the item exist? Second branch. Do we have enough? I want to show you guys one additional thing before we end the episode. It is something that I learned you can do. It's a little bit of mixture of data-driven and the class system that we're using now. I didn't know you could do this till recently, and I actually think it's really cool. So I'm going to go into my BPs. I'm going to go to, in fact, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name it data. We're going to open it up. And we're going to go to blueprint, and we're going to make a structure. So the reason this is going to be important, in fact, let's name it first. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to do struct underscore item, Control Shift S. So the reason this is going to be important is because right now, remember, we're dealing with class defaults. So whenever you create a class and it's like its durability is 50 out of 50, let's say we're talking about a sword or something. Well, when that durability goes down, you've got nowhere to store that information right now. However, if we use structs, we can continue to use that kind of information. So I'm going to go ahead and create my struct here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this durability. And I'm going to name it or make it like an integer. You can do a float if you need to be more precise. But basically what you do is anything that could have fluctuating value, like maybe with the durability, we want the value to go down. Anything that has a fluctuating value that needs to be saved, like durability, how much it costs, maybe whenever it gets upgraded, the attack value changes, right? Any of that needs to be put into a struct. And what you're going to see is really cool. I didn't know you could do this until recently. And what you're going to do is, let's go back to our game instance here. And this is still important. Player inventory, BP, parent item, still really important. However, when it comes to fluctuating values, what you're going to do is you're going to create one more here. And we're going to call this maybe like dynamic inventory. I don't really have a good name for it right now. And just like BP parent item, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to make it a BP parent item as a class reference. And then we're going to come over here to the right hand side and the variable type, click on this little dot, and we're going to make it a map. And in our dynamic inventory, instead of quantity being the other thing, so like over here, it's an integer, we're actually going to type in struct underscore item. And then we're going to hit compile and save. This is where it gets really cool. And in fact, if I would have known this sooner, I would have told you. So this is me apologizing because I like to know what I'm doing when I go into something. And now that I know this exists, it's just better. To emphasize what I mean, I'm going to go back to struct item and we're going to add and we're going to type in quantity, which unfortunately we have already set to another system. But I'm going to close struct item now. And on the right hand side, after we save and compile, so let me do that really quick. You'll see, am I in the way? No, I should be good. We have our dynamic inventory. I can click this. We can set this to like dagger. I can open this up, durability, value, attack, and quantity, and they're adjustable. I'm so sorry I didn't know this sooner. So that's why it took a long time to make the next episode, because again, if I don't have a solid foundation, I don't like to make it. I don't like to make the video because I get scared, because I value that I'm telling you things in a accurate way that helps you learn. And when I hit walls where I'm left being like, I'm not sure, it makes me not want to make the video. And then for you guys, it comes off like, oh, he gave up on the series. It's not that I'm giving up. It's that I want to make sure I'm providing valuable, truthful information. And in this case, I genuinely thought this was the best way to do it. And it still works. There's a lot of ways you can still do this. In fact, if you take what I've already taught you, you can still use structs and save them in your save system with the dynamic information. However, if you're not like too already developed into the first one, this is the better way to do it, and I'm sorry that I didn't know that. You'll notice, by the way, if I get the dynamic inventory and I do like a find, for example, it doesn't matter what the class is. This blue pen, if I pull it out and I do a break, look, there's all the information. I I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I hope you're enjoying the series. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This might be the last one in this. We might continue if I find more things to point out that are on the logic side that aren't specifically visual. You guys have been great. I'll see you in the next one.